Alright, what's up guys, it is Storm back here with another video, and in this one I am bringing you the full story of the Rimuru story that I've been doing for a couple months with all 7 parts combined into one video, pretty much. So, if you like the content you're seeing, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. I mean, they're all free, so why not? If you want some dope channel merch, the link that'll be down in the description below. And if you want to see more of me, go check out my other channels and go follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, which will all be linked down below. But without further ado, why don't we just dive right on in. Rimuru had seen the devastation, the destruction, all the death around him. His home, his friends, no, his family had been taken from him. They did this. The demon lords. They had teamed up with the filthy humans to wipe out the monsters. Even Dwargon, the Hero King, had gone against him. All the while he was away and he had no idea. It seemed as if he was kept at bay with some sort of magic without even realizing it. When he first returned to Tempest, he saw sights that changed him forever. His friends, no, family, lying dead on the ground like they were nothing. Slaughtered as if they were monsters. That was it. That was the reason. They all did this because Tempest was a nation of monsters. Did they really fear them that much? They were just like any other people. They had feelings, dreams, families, and yet they were slaughtered. Like they were lower than trash. Not even a single life was spared. Fathers, mothers, even children were killed. What kind of person does this? Rimuru thought. Those were the true monsters. Rimuru walked through his home, and that's when he saw his family. Shion and Shuna had been lying next to each other, their corpses riddled with blood and wounds. Not only were they killed, but it looked like they had been violated before they were put out of their misery. Rimuru felt tears start to go down his face. But as he turned around, he saw the goblins. Rieger, Gobata, and all the rest. They were everywhere. The street littered with the corpses of the village of goblins that Tempest had been created from. Without even realizing it, he had reached out his hand. He felt more tears go down his face as he continued on through this nightmare. How could they have been overpowered like this? Rimuru thought, as he came to the corpse of Soe and the Dragonettes, and everyone who served under him. They were strong, unbelievably strong, and yet here they were dead, like they had been wiped out as if they had been but a mere speck. Not only that, but Rimuru found the corpses of Hakoru and Benimaru. How, he thought. They were the strongest, and now here he was, his home, his friends, everything he cared about. Gone. That was when he heard the story about how he could save them from the 3 adventurers that had been involved with Shizue. Rimuru felt a glint of hope, but as soon as he asked the Great Sage, she told him that the time limit to bring them back had already ceased before he had even arrived. Rimuru went dizzy for a second, as the realization that this was permanent set in. He couldn't save them. That was when he realized that this was his fault. He had told them not to harm the humans, and they obeyed him, and look what that got them. Death. The 3 adventurers saw Rimuru this way and decided it was best they leave, as they came in at a time that was not the best, as they were also sad to see Tempest destroyed, but they couldn't do anything about it now. Rimuru was left there, all by himself. That was when Rimuru asked for Ranga to come out. And as soon as he came out of Rimuru's shadow, it was a trap meant to finish off any remaining monsters. But since Rimuru was stronger, it didn't faze him. But Ranga wasn't so lucky. A sudden explosion as soon as Ranga came out shocked Rimuru, and once the dust settled, he saw what remained of Ranga. Rimuru's anger skyrocketed. Ranga was the only family he had left, and they took him from Rimuru too. Rimuru then had a thought. And instead of being a corpse in the ground, they could rest in peace if he absorbed them, and that's exactly what he did. Rimuru went around the Tempest Federation and absorbed every corpse. He absorbed the entire population of his nation. With this, Rimuru grew in immense strength. That was when the Great Sage told Rimuru about the Demon Lord candidate seed inside him, and the 10,000 human souls he would need in order to achieve the title. But in terms of strength, he was almost there. That was when Rimuru started laughing like a madman. Not only was he laughing, he was crying at the same time. If anyone saw the look he had on his face, they would be mortified. Rimuru put on his mask, and that was when he decided that everyone involved in this would pay. He would kill every last one. He would tear down their nations, tear down their kingdoms, and put an end to them once and for all. Not only that, he would become a demon lord and wipe out all others, becoming the one true demon lord. He would make monsters the rightful rulers of everything, and he would turn the race of humans into his slaves. And if they rebelled, he would kill them all. If this world wanted a monster, then he would show them the true monster. Rimuru had lost everything and everyone he cared about. They were all taken from him. Every last one. He was going to make them all pay. All who were involved would be ended by his hand. A dark smile grew on Rimuru's face, while a tear shed down his eye at the same time. Rimuru's plan was to go to the armed nation of Dwargon and deal with the scum who he once thought was his ally, Gazelle Dwargo. Rimuru made the journey to the armed nation of Dwargon. That's when he remembered the first time he came here and met those 4 dwarves who joined him. He thought back to how he discovered their corpses next to the goblins, butchered by their own nation. Rimuru entered through the doors of the nation, his face not showing any emotion. He walked calmly through the town until he made his way to the castle, where he was stopped by guards. Rimuru simply moved them out of the way, or rather, absorbed them into his being. With that, Rimuru entered the castle, absorbing and killing anyone who got in his way. That's when he made his way into the throne room, and appeared before Gazelle Dwargo. Rimuru simply looked at him and spoke in a calm, dark voice. Why? Why did you betray me? Gazelle smiled and responded, because you and your nation are nothing but filthy beasts that only deserve death. They were innocent. They were like everyone else. Gazelle stood up and began to walk to Rimuru. I see you need to join them, boy. If you think you can win, come and try it, Rimuru said. Gazelle unsheathed the sword and a blink of an eye slashed at Rimuru, but Rimuru stepped out of the way and dodged it. Is that your best effort? Rimuru asked. Not even close, Gazelle responded. The two then engaged in a sword fight as Rimuru unsheathed his own sword. Blade against blade, the two continued to strike and block against one another. For a monster, you're not too bad. I thought you'd be stronger than this, however, Gazelle taunted. Rimuru evilly laughed. I was just toying with you. This is where the real fun begins. After saying those words, Rimuru began his onslaught on Gazelle. Rimuru's speed increased immensely, and Gazelle couldn't keep up. Rimuru appeared all around him, cutting and slashing Gazelle all over his body. Rimuru then let out a smile when he cut off Gazelle's arm, the one which held his sword. Gazelle yelled in pain. That was when Rimuru cut off one of Gazelle's legs, and he flopped to the ground. Gazelle was now on the ground, bleeding out. Please, please, spare me, Gazelle begged. Like how you spared my people? Rimuru responded. Damn you. We were right. You are a monster. I enjoy the destruction of your nation. Gazelle managed to gurgle out with blood in his mouth. With one final look, Rimuru ended Gazelle Dwargo by taking the supposed Hero King's own sword and decapitating him. not before absorbing the now deceased king. Rimuru walked through Dwargon, killing everyone who lived in the nation, and absorbing them into his own being, including men, women, and even children, all suffered his wrath. It wasn't their fault, it just happened to be a part of a nation that took everything from him, and for that, they all had to die. Rimuru's strength increased as did his rage, and his lust for revenge. Rimuru was now floating in the sky, looking down at the now destroyed armed nation of Dwargon. He let out a dark smile, and then spoke to no one in particular. "You humans said I was a monster. Well, if you want a monster, I'll become the very thing you weak, puny beings fear. I'll become the strongest and most relentless monster of them all." Next on his list was to end the kingdom of Falmouth. Those humans. He was going to make them pay dearly for what they had done. Rimuru had lost everything and everyone he cared about. All of it. It was all gone. And for that, he would get his revenge upon the one responsible. He already ended that scum Gazel Dwargo and destroyed the worthless armed nation of Dwargon. He still wanted more though. He wanted to completely annihilate all that were involved in the destruction of his home and the deaths of his friends. No, his family. His next target was the kingdom of Falmouth. Flying through the sky, Rimuru had a dark and twisted smile on his face. He couldn't wait to destroy everything in that kingdom and end all of those worthless, good-for-nothing humans. Then, to atone for their sins, he would absorb them into his own being to increase his strength to the next level and take on the threat he wanted to end personally: the filthy demon lords. Rimuru eventually arrived at the kingdom of Falmouth. He came to a stop and was completely still in the sky over the kingdom. He looked down and watched as the humans went about their daily lives, unaware of what was about to occur. Rimuru readied the attack he was going to use, and after a few minutes, he unleashed it. Rimuru unleashed Megiddo on the citizens and everyone inside the kingdom. Rimuru couldn't help but laugh as he saw these good-for-nothing humans being exterminated like the insignificant beings they were. If they wanted a monster, Rimuru would not only show them, but this entire world what a true monster is. Bodies upon countless bodies dropped to the ground dead. Men, women, children. It didn't matter. They all deserved to die in Rimuru's eyes. Minutes passed, and it appeared as if most of the kingdom had already been taken care of. All that was left was the king, who Rimuru would personally take care of, and any stragglers who might have survived the initial attack. Rimuru flew down to the king and started to walk towards the king's castle. Bodies were everywhere, but Rimuru paid them no mind. A knight suddenly appeared and yelled, You're the one who did this!" Rimuru responded, "So what if I am? What are you gonna do about it, you worthless human scum?" The knight, taken aback, yelled, "You killed everyone I knew and loved. For that, I'm going to kill you." In the blink of an eye, Rimuru appeared next to him and whispered, "Then you know what it feels like to lose everyone. So, we're the same, and for that, I'll let you join them." Before the knight even knew what happened, he fell to the ground dead. Rimuru eventually made his way into the castle, and that's when he came into contact with the other worlders. Rimuru told them to get out of his way, but that was when one of them gloated. "Ha! So you must be the leader of that worthless monster nation. Too bad it's gone. I had a lot of fun there, especially with those two pretty monsters. I enjoyed my time with them." Hearing these words caused Rimuru to remember that nightmarish scene. Shuna and Shion dead, having been violated. In a dark voice, with a look of pure hatred on his face, Rimuru spoke. "So, it was you. Nice limbs you have there. You won't need them anymore. In a split second, the otherworlder scum dropped to the floor. His limbs gone. What? Before he could even register what was going on, his head was ripped off and in Rimuru's hand. The other two were completely shocked, and as Rimuru crushed the head into a bloody pulp, he quickly dealt with the other two. With those pests out of the way, Rimuru continued on in the castle, killing whoever survived, until he made his way to the king. You took everything from me. Why? Tell me, you worthless waste of a soul, Rimuru yelled in anger. The king, fearful for his life, begged, but please, spare me. I said answer me, old man, Rimuru yelled once more. The king, realizing that this might be the end, did something he would later regret. He laughed. You worthless monsters. All of you should die. I loved giving that order as it benefited this entire world. The king looked down to see a hole in his chest. With blurry vision, he looked up and saw Rimuru with the bloody hand, and the king's heart in that hand. The king coughed up blood, and as he stumbled over, the king spoke his final words. The world will come together to end your evil. The ruler of the kingdom of Falmouth then dropped to the floor dead. Rimuru looked at his corpse, and as he dropped the heart to the ground, he told the deceased king, "Let them try." Rimuru then walked out of the castle, having finished his business. Afterwards, he proceeded to absorb every corpse in Falmouth, and this in turn started the process of turning Rimuru into a demon lord. Rimuru fell asleep for 3 days, and as he was asleep, one human who had remained, a certain mage who could use nuclear magic, scurried his way out of the kingdom to warn the rest of humanity about this threat. As Rimuru awoke, he felt his body changed and felt more powerful with new abilities. Rimuru was still in Falmouth, and as he flew into the sky, he looked on as he unleashed a devastating attack that wiped out the kingdom off the face of the planet. Nothing was left, and as Rimuru flew off, smiling, he moved on to his next goal, to end the Demon Lords. Rimuru flew through the sky, thinking of all the loss and devastation he had endured. His home, his family, stuck in this godforsaken world without anyone or anything. But he did have something. He had his unyielding rage against those he deemed responsible. The armed nation of Dwargon, the kingdom of Falmouth, mere insects that needed to be squashed. But the Demon Lords, however, it would take everything he had to put an end to that scum. It was going to be difficult, but the harder of a fight they put up, the more he would enjoy watching them take their last breath. At that, he smiled. He would show them what a true Demon Lord is. His first target, Demon Lord Carrion, the leader of that beast nation. Before this, he didn't have any problems with them. They acknowledged one another, and he was okay with that. But things had changed as Rimuru arrived at Carrion's nation. Things, however, did not go as expected. Rimuru thought that he would arrive there without anybody even realizing it, but what he saw before him told him otherwise. Rimuru saw the full force of what Carrion's beast nation could offer as resistance, and even Carrion himself. From this, Rimuru surmised that there must have been a rat who survived, informing the rest of the world of the threat of Rimuru Tempest. However, he wasn't mad because of this. Oh no. This was going to be a blast. Rimuru flew down to the ground and appeared in front of Demon Lord Carrion and his army. Rimuru, my friend, stop this madness. I'm sorry for the loss of your people, but that isn't an excuse for what you've done. Let's stop this right here before any bloodshed occurs, and let me take you in shackles instead of death. You see, Carrion, that's where you're wrong. First, I'm not your friend, and I'm afraid I can't do that. I'm gonna destroy everything and everyone responsible, And then I'm going to show this world what a true demon looks like, Rimuru responded. Carrion spoke in return. You did this, my friend. Not me. Attack! The full force of Carrion's army rushed towards Rimuru, and Rimuru stood there motionless. That was until he unleashed some of his power and dashed forward. Rimuru went from soldier to soldier, using his newfound strength to utterly annihilate them, and within minutes, Carrion's army was decimated. Eventually, only Carrion and a few of his close troops remained, whom he told to escape as he would end this threat himself. You see, Carrion, this is what a new demon lord is capable of, Rimuru taunted him. I knew I felt something, and I had an inkling it was you. But to think, you would use power for something like this, Carrion responded. Well shit, I am a demon lord. I'm pretty sure this is what we're supposed to do. You've just been slacking on the job. However, I'm using my power on those who deserve it, Rimuru angrily told him. Those who deserve it? You slaughtered innocent men, women, and children, Carrion said, trying to get through to him. Your demon lord buddies did the same thing to my people. If one of you is responsible, all of you are, Rimuru yelled before launching at Carrion and unleashing a massive punch that sent Carrion flying through a mountain. Carrion got up and dusted himself off just in time to see Rimuru flying in for another attack. But this time, Carrion dodged and grabbed Rimuru by the hair and started slamming him on the ground over and over before throwing him into what remained of his kingdom. Rimuru flew from the impacted mountain into the Beast Kingdom and flew through building after building. The citizens of the Beast Kingdom had managed to escape, so luckily no one was harmed from the collateral damage. Rimuru got up and flew over to the dead army and absorbed every last one of them, increasing his strength even more. Carrion flew in front of him and at the sight transformed, making him stronger. It's time to end this, Rimuru. I couldn't agree more, Carrion. Carrion flew towards Rimuru to throw a devastating punch, but Rimuru blocked it without breaking much of a sweat. After a few more minutes, Carrion threw attack after attack, but Rimuru was only on the defensive. Eventually, Carrion started to tire, and that's when Rimuru struck. He flew forward, grabbing Carrion by his face and started flying faster and faster, eventually breaking the speed of sound, all the while dragging Carrion by his face through the ground. While flying, Rimuru threw punch after punch all over Carrion's body, and after about a minute of flying where Carrion was meeting ground and fist, Rimuru lifted him up by his head, holding it with one hand, and unleashed a devastating blow to the gut, which resulted in Carrion coughing up blood. Rimuru repeated this over and over, and he threw up Carrion up in the air and flew on top of him, using his hands as a cannon to rocket him towards the ground. Carrion crashed into the dirt, creating a massive crater, and as Rimuru landed in front of him, Carrion barely managed to get up, and despite his battered, bruised, bloody, and broken body, "Why continue this? You know you can't win," Rimuru told him. I know, but someone has to stop you. Carrion managed to gurgle out over the blood in his mouth. Well, that someone won't be you, Rimuru told Carrion one last time, as Carrion looked down and saw a fist through his chest. Carrion coughed up more blood and fell onto Rimuru's shoulder. As he was covered in blood inside and out, Carrion spoke one last time. You will stop it. With those final words, Carrion died, having failed to take down Rimuru. Rimuru took the fist he had in Carrion's chest and wiped the blood off it. As he looked down at Carrion's body, he spoke. I don't think so. I'll kill all of those responsible. And then I'll take this world into the direction where events like this will never occur. As this world's sole demon lord. No. This world's god. Rimuru then absorbed Carrion's body, increasing his power even further, which resulted in Rimuru going into a deep sleep. As Rimuru awoke, he looked up and saw that in every direction he was surrounded. It looked as if there was an infinite number of pests that needed to be terminated all around him. This was Demon Lord Clayman's attempt to end Rimuru as Carrion had failed. Rimuru smiled. "Bring it on, Clayman. I'll kill every last insignificant insect you send, and then I'll be paying you a visit very shortly." Rimuru then spoke up. "So, army of Demon Lord Clayman, give it your best shot." No one stood in his way. All those who did fell before him. He would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. Rimuru looked up at the army around him. Mere pests that needed to be taken care of. They were in the way of his quest to get justice for his people, his family. However, Rimuru began to question if they would want this. All this death, destruction, devastation. Would they want him to do this? Or would they see him as some horrific monster? Was it too late to turn back now? Rimuru continued to think, and the answer he came up with told him otherwise. No. They all needed to die, and this world needed to be brought in the right direction to make sure nothing like that happened ever again. With these thoughts, Rimuru prepared himself for the massive battle that was about to occur. That's when he yelled, "You want to kill me? Then come and try!" With those words, Demon Lord Clayman smiled and ordered his army to attack, and leave no trace of this filth behind. At this, Rimuru smiled. This was going to be fun. Rimuru flew at blinding speeds towards the army and began wiping out the massive force. There were all types of creatures, from demons to unholy abominations and even regular-looking soldiers. He would show them no mercy. The unholy abominations flew in the sky, and it appeared as though they were some type of horrendous experiment. As they flew towards Rimuru, they screeched an ungodly noise, which Rimuru assumed to be their battle cry. As they launched towards Rimuru, he launched towards them. Hundreds of these creatures annihilated in moments. Was that really the best they could do? Rimuru dropped down to the ground, and the next targets were the soldiers and the demons. The army yelled and moved towards Rimuru, and his response was to just let them try. One soldier ran towards Rimuru, who swung a sword, but Rimuru easily dodged, and before the soldier could react, Rimuru's hand was through his chest. Within the next few minutes, Rimuru casually tore through and killed the soldiers like they were nothing. Eventually, all of the soldiers were no more. All that was left were the demons. However, something occurred that Rimuru did not expect. The demons all combined into one massive entity. He could tell this thing radiated power, but that would not deter him. Rimuru flew towards the beast and went for an assault of punches, but that was when the large beast used its massive hand to catch Rimuru and throw him into the ground, causing a massive crater. This dazed Rimuru a bit, as when the beast removed its hand, Rimuru looked up from the crater to see a massive leg coming down. The beast had used its legs to stomp on Rimuru over and over. Rimuru had felt pain. It only hurt a bit, but it was the first time in a long time something actually fazed him. Eventually, Rimuru grew tired of this and stopped the beast stomping with his right hand, and that was when he flew up at full speed, which caught the monster off guard and made it lose its balance and stumble over. Rimuru floated in the sky with a stoic look on his face while staring at the beast, and that was when the beast launched a massive beam attack from his mouth, which in turn caused Rimuru to respond with his own beam attack. It appeared as if the two were in a beam struggle, but that was not the case, as when Rimuru upped the power a bit, his energy beam overpowered the beast's and went straight through its chest, ultimately making Rimuru the victor. Rimuru smiled and said, "Is this really the best you have to offer, Clayman?" That was when he heard a voice. "No, that's not the best I have to offer. This is." Rimuru didn't expect him to show up. That was when Clayman used Rimuru's absorbing ability to absorb the entirety of his deceased army. Rimuru was shocked. Clayman had found some way to copy his ability and to make it his own. Rimuru watched as Clayman began transforming. No, evolving into something more. The evolution concluded, and the result was that Clayman was on an entirely different level. He was bigger, stronger, and radiated power that seemed unfathomable. He was on the level of Rimuru, and he seemed equal in terms of power. It's time to die, boy. Before Rimuru could even react, Clayman had disappeared from his view and reappeared in front of him at blinding speeds. Clayman launched a fist into Rimuru's gut, which made him stagger a bit before sending him flying into a mountain, destroying it. As Rimuru got up from the rubble, Clayman was in front of him, smiling, and that's when Rimuru punched him, but Clayman caught his fist. Clayman used his opportunity to pick up Rimuru by the hand, and began slamming him on the ground repeatedly. Rimuru could do nothing against the brute strength behind these attacks, and eventually Clayman held him up by his arm, and then kneed Rimuru in the gut, not before kicking him so hard that it sent him tumbling through the earth so hard and so fast that it sent him miles away. Rimuru managed to catch himself and stopped his tumbling, but not before he saw Clayman flying towards him. Rimuru braced himself and Clayman arrived with a massive punch, which Rimuru managed to withstand. He thought Clayman was equal in terms of power to him, but this was on a different level. Rimuru knew that the only way to win was to go all out, at full power. After Clayman's last attack, Rimuru began to power up, and unleash all of his pent-up strength. An aura of energy surrounded Rimuru, and he was ready. He launched himself towards Clayman, and the two engaged in a battle for the ages, going blow for blow, blocking one another's attacks, and predicting what they would do next. They were evenly matched. After a few minutes of going back and forth, Clayman threw a punch, but what Rimuru didn't expect was that this punch had a massive ball of energy in it, which, when it collided with Rimuru, exploded on impact, sending him flying into the ground once again. Clayman walked up to Rimuru and picked him up by his head and began punching him repeatedly. "You thought you had a chance, boy. You never did. Now die!" As Clayman launched his final attack to finish off Rimuru, Rimuru began to unleash a dark aura. "Everything. I've lost everything, and you think I'm gonna die before my vengeance is quelled? It never will be. I will end everyone responsible. No. This world took everything from me. And here I was gonna help this world. But no. I'm going to end everything this pitiful planet stands for. I will destroy this worthless, godforsaken rock, and every being on it, starting with you." As Rimuru spoke these words, he removed Clayman's hand from his head, and grabbed it by the wrist, crushing it. Rimuru had accepted the darkness, and now he was far too gone. Rimuru prepared a punch and sent all of his energy into it, and before Clayman could even respond, Rimuru's punch went through his head, utterly destroying it, killing him instantly. Rimuru yelled and began tearing Clayman's corpse limb from limb, and all that was left were the pieces that were once Demon Lord Clayman. Rimuru then absorbed the remains and passed out, waking up a few days later, not really remembering anything after getting pummeled by Clayman. What happened? That was when Rimuru remembered, and he didn't feel fear at this memory. No, he felt joy, as he was going to go through with everything, he said. But before that, there was one thing remaining. He had to finish off his old friend, Demon Lord Milim. Everyone who got in Rimuru's way was no more. The armed nation of Dwargon, the kingdom of Falmouth, Demon Lord Carrion, and Demon Lord Clayman. All fools who hurt and wronged him, and for that, Rimuru ended them like the peasants they were. After all, they took everything from him, so why not take everything from them? The next piece of filth on Rimuru's list was Demon Lord Milim, his old buddy. Rimuru had been taken over by the darkness, and he didn't care what he did or who got in his way. If something was in the way of his goal, he would utterly annihilate it now, be that a thing or a person. And right now, Rimuru's only objective was to kill Milim. However, she was on an entirely different level than anyone he had ever fought against. With everything Rimuru had absorbed, which would make him stronger, he felt that he could take on Milim and kill her, and if he absorbed her, then Rimuru would have unfathomable power, and no one would be able to stop him. Rimuru laughed darkly, and as a result of all the death and destruction he had been through, this laugh was more twisted and sadistic. Rimuru had become a dark shell of the person he used to be. He had no one now. They were all gone, and he had killed pretty much everyone involved. Once he was done with Milim, he would then decimate this world and every being on it. As Rimuru was flying through the air, that's when he saw something flying directly towards him. It was moving way too fast for him to see what it was, and before he knew what happened, the flying object smashed into him, causing Rimuru to go flying into a mountainside. Rimuru got up from the rubble and dusted himself off. He looked up to see what crashed into him, and it was none other than Demon Lord Milim herself. So, you've finally shown yourself, Milim. It's time for you, along with the rest of this god-forsaken world, to die, Rimuru told her. Milim glared at Rimuru and responded, I'm sorry about what happened to your people, but even as a new demon lord, that doesn't give you the right to eradicate entire populations into nothing. Innocent ones, at that. Rimuru laughed. Like you're one to talk. I thought you were my friend, but I guess I was wrong. I don't have any friends or family. They're all dead. I don't have anyone. Rimuru looked down as if sad, and Milim felt a bit sorry for him, but that was when he lifted his head and that dark twisted smile returned. Rimuru began to speak. But you know what? Maybe them dying was a good thing. I mean, look at how powerful I've become. And once I kill you and absorb you, I'll be unstoppable. A tear ran down Milim's eye as the friend she once knew was gone, and the thing that remained was nothing but an insane, sadistic, evil monster that needed to be eradicated for the betterment of the world. Milim spoke. I'm not going to let you do any of that, Rimuru. Then why don't you try and stop me? Rimuru yelled. With those words, the two opposing demon lords launched towards one another. Rimuru from the destroyed mountainside, and Milim from the sky. The two eventually reached one another and their fists clashed, causing a massive sonic boom, but neither hesitated, and both went in for a flurry of attacks. Milim blocking Rimuru's punches and kicks while Rimuru was doing the same. They were evenly matched. This went on for an undetermined amount of time and neither was backing down. The intensity and power of the attacks continued to increase until Rimuru concentrated his dark aura into his right fist and punched Milim in the gut, and then kicked her into the ground, causing a massive crater. Rimuru followed that up with a massive barrage of energy beams that collided with Milim and exploded on impact. Rimuru smiled until he saw the dust begin to clear, and that was when Milim appeared, but she was different. She had transformed. This transformation increased Milim's power immensely and put her on an entirely different level. She disappeared and then reappeared in front of Rimuru before he could even react. She grabbed his face with her hand and flew to the ground in an instant, causing a huge crater in the ground. She then picked up Rimuru by the face once more and buried his head in the ground, and started to fly at an unimaginable speed while Rimuru's head was still being dragged through the ground. All the while, Rimuru could do nothing against Milim. Milim followed this up by then tossing Rimuru miles away, and flying in the direction he was tossed in. Rimuru crashed into a village. That was when Rimuru slowly picked himself up and looked at Milim, who arrived on the scene. You can't stop me. If I can absorb, my strength knows no limits. That's when Rimuru absorbed every living thing in the village. increasing his power a bit, and to top it off, he unleashed all of his dark aura that he had bottled up. And now, Rimuru is going 100% full power. The two Demon Lord powerhouses stared each other down, and in a split second rushed towards one another, engaging in a hand-to-hand battle like earlier, but this time on a scale that couldn't even be comprehended or compared to earlier. Their attacks and blocks were causing shockwaves that resulted in the wind increasing, rain starting to drop, and earthquakes beginning to occur. Rimuru's and Milim's fight was causing devastation all around them, and was completely destroying the environment into nothing but a wasteland. That was when Rimuru smiled, as he grabbed a hold of Milim by the neck, and began to absorb her power little by little. Milim began to feel her power draining, and she felt herself getting weaker by the second. It was only a matter of time until she was sapped dry. Rimuru smiled. No one can stop me. Not the humans, the Demon Lords, even you. I am Rimuru Tempest. I'm practically God. Before Rimuru was about to completely sap Milim dry of her power, Rimuru heard a voice. Rimuru. What? What have you done? Rimuru looked around while still holding Milim by the neck to see who was talking. Who's there? Rimuru asked, slightly afraid. It's your friend, Veldora Tempest. Veldora? Is that really you? How? Rimuru asked, taken aback. It is time I be released from you, and it's my duty to stop you. That was when a bright light appeared from Rimuru, and everything went dark. Rimuru opened his eyes a few seconds later and saw a strange man helping up a weakened Milim. Veldora? Rimuru asked in shock at his human form. That was when Rimuru remembered what Veldora said. You're going to stop me, Rimuru spoke. Veldora responded. It's time someone put an end to your destruction, Rimuru. No one stops me, no one, 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 no one! Rimuru yelled repeatedly. Veldora and Milim looked in shock, as Rimuru fell into the depths of darkness and insanity. If you think you can stop me, then give it your best shot. I'll kill every last life form on this fucking world, Rimuru told them. Veldora spoke. If that's what it takes, I will save this world from you, Rimuru Tempest. My first friend. You aren't powerful enough to stop me, Rimuru responded. You trust your abilities too much. That's why I have help, Veldora told him. With those words, Veldora Tempest, the Storm Dragon, and Demon Lord Milim prepare to take on the world's biggest threat, an insane, evil Rimuru Tempest. An evil Rimuru stood full power before Veldora the Storm Dragon, Demon Lord Milim. Veldora, Milim, are you prepared to die along with everything else on this world? Every living thing, every insignificant insect that are so-called beings that exist only to take, and take, and take, and nothing else, Rimuru told them. Veldora responded. You're wrong, Rimuru. Every being, every form of life deserves a chance to live, and whatever they choose to do with their life is on them, not anyone else, and most certainly not on the entire world. Milim spoke up next. Rimuru, I'm sorry for what happened to your friends, your family, but that doesn't give you the right to dictate how everything will end, or how anything goes. You may be demon lords, but even we have our limits. Rimuru spoke. So I guess we aren't seeing eye to eye. I guess I'll just have to kill you to fulfill what needs to be done. And if you think you can stop me, then go ahead and try. With those words, Demon Lord Milim, who is still transformed, and Veldora the Storm Dragon, who is in a human form, readied themselves, and launched towards Rimuru at full speed. Rimuru smiled darkly as the two drew closer. He readied himself as well. Milim was the first to arrive towards Rimuru, and she went in for a massive punch that would do devastating damage, but Rimuru easily dodged it and grabbed her by the fist and tossed her up into the air at an incredible speed. Veldora arrived second, and seeing that, he unleashed a massive beam of energy from his hands towards Rimuru. and jumped into the air to catch Milim. Veldora, while in the air, managed to catch Milim, and with the two of them in the sky, they both saw that Rimuru had brushed off the beam of energy and was flying towards them. Veldora and Milim launched at Rimuru as well, and the Storm Dragon and Demon Lord raced towards the evil slime, until they collided and started to go blow for blow. Veldora and Milim against Rimuru. It was a fairly even match, with the two tag teaming against Rimuru, attacking at the same time, and switching in at the perfect moment. It was as if the two were in perfect sync. However, after a while of punches, kicks, and blocks from the dragon and demon towards the slime, and vice versa, Veldora and Milim began to get the upper hand. Here and there, Rimuru would get punched in the face, or the gut, or kicked somewhere until Veldora slammed his fist into Rimuru's back, which sent him rocketing towards the ground. A dazed Rimuru began to get up from the crater he had created, and saw that Veldora and Milim were headed towards him. Rimuru was getting angrier and angrier. Couldn't they see what he was trying to do was a good thing? Couldn't they see that it was the right thing? And so, Rimuru yelled in anger, "I won't let anyone or anything stop me from destroying everything!" Rimuru powered up even more, and was now overflowing with power, and when Veldora and Milim arrived near that crater, he jumped and grabbed them both by their necks and began flying while smashing and dragging their heads to the ground. Eventually, Rimuru picked them up and threw them into a nearby mountain. Veldora and Milim were both dazed and injured, but they knew they couldn't give up, and they had to go beyond their full power to stop Rimuru. They crawled out of the destroyed mountainside, and saw Rimuru in front of them, but he was different. He was overflowing with power. Too much power. And everything was glowing. Even his eyes were glowing. Rimuru spoke. "This is the end. I am a god, and when I say it goes. And now you die!" Rimuru then launched a massive beam of energy, the likes of which this world had never seen. And Veldora and Milim looked at each other, before nodding and knowing what they had to do. They both went full power. No, they went beyond their full power and were reaching a level they never knew existed. And then, they launched their own massive beams and it combined and collided with Rimuru's, which matched it in power. The opposing beams of energy were in a beam struggle that couldn't even be fathomed of the power behind it. Rimuru was giving 150%, and still, they did not die. However, that's when Veldora and Milim unleashed even more pent-up power, and little by little, their combined energy beam began to overpower Rimuru's, until their beam overtook Rimuru's. Veldora and Milim's energy beam had overtaken Rimuru's, and the beam struck Rimuru, and he was impacted with the full power of everything Veldora and Milim had, and then some. The beam caused a massive explosion that could be seen from space, and Veldora and Milim were sent flying back and were both knocked out. When the two awoke, they looked around and saw that the landscape around them was a complete and utter wasteland. And that's when they saw Rimuru, who was laying on the ground, and when they walked up to him, they saw how badly he was hurt. Rimuru was on the verge of death, and no healing would be able to save him from these injuries. Veldora and Milim looked down to their friend, and Veldora spoke. "We had to stop you, Rimuru. Why? Why did you make us do this?" Rimuru could barely speak, but he managed to get out. I just wanted to stop anyone from losing anything ever again. Milim spoke next. "You can rest, Rimuru. You can see your family now." Rimuru tried to speak once more. I'll get to see them. I like the sound of that. I'm sorry, everyone." And with those final words, Rimuru Tempest was no more. Even though they were both incredibly injured, Veldora and Milim looked upon Rimuru's body, and tears began to stream down their eyes and faces, until they both smiled, and looked towards one another and then looked towards the sky. Neither spoke a word, but they understood what the other was thinking. They understood that the Rimuru who had become their first true friend would want them to save this world, and to lead it in the right direction.
愛してる